Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us today for turning employee sentiment into a strategic advantage with responsible AI. AI seems to be part of every conversation that I'm having these days. We see it in blogs and newsletters and conferences. And increasingly, AI is being used not just to automate our processes and to make us more efficient, but to influence our decisions. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sean Overcast, and I am the General Manager for Enterprise Solutions at Explorance. If you're here to learn more about AI, or if you're here to maybe gain tools and strategies for making sense of your employee sentiment data, you are in the right place. But first, a bit about Explorance. If you're new to us, Explorance was founded not just to build software, but to truly unlock human potential through meaningful feedback. We are a global company. We've been at this for over 20 years, and we have presence in over 50 countries across 5 continents. I would say we are a pioneer in AI for feedback, and the solution that I'm sharing with you today, specific to the use of AI for employee sentiment data and amplifying the voice of the employee, is one that began in development nearly 8 years ago. And I'll explain a bit more about why that is and what our thought was in the design process for that as we go. I'd like to introduce you to that solution that we refer to as Millie. Millie is the AI-powered employee sentiment analysis platform. Millie is our AI-powered solution that helps to transform open-ended feedback. So anywhere you might be getting comment data or unstructured data from your employees, and it turns all of that sentiment into actionable insights. It takes all of that comment data, the comments perhaps from your engagement surveys or your exit interviews, or even your perhaps Glassdoor comments, and turns them into intelligence. Employee sentiment is a competitive advantage for us when powered by AI, or it can be if done responsibly. We know that AI is no longer something that HR leaders are just experimenting with or considering, but it's quietly woven into how many of us already work. It's embedded from automation to intelligence. Automation are things like streamlining our repetitive tasks, things like chatbots that answer benefits questions, or resume screeners helping our recruiters to handle high volumes. We see it with insight generation when AI can help us to surface patterns in our data, helping us to understand the workforce, even helping to identify early flight risk indicators, for example. And now at the leading edge, we see AI as intelligence. We see systems that don't just describe what's happening, not just broadcasting the news, but recommending what to do about it. Everything from reskilling priorities to how career paths should evolve in workforce planning. The conversation isn't about whether AI belongs in HR or how to integrate it into our HR processes. The question now is, how do we use it responsibly and effectively? But the reality check is there is something that is holding us back. In many cases, we're not as far along with our use of AI as we might want to be, or perhaps as the organization wants us to be, or our employees want us to be. And so that brings us to this consideration, because as exciting as the potential is for using AI, and maybe many of us are using it in our personal lives, there are also some very real challenges that are standing in our way. Let's take a look at what some of those are. As AI enables HR to do things we've wanted to do for years, such as personalizing the employee experience, anticipating flight risk, and making decisions grounded in data rather than gut. We know that there are some real challenges in HR. As these AI tools scale, we've hit a couple of critical friction points. And we see a couple of them here. And I encourage you to review the list and see which might be most relevant to you. And feel free to comment here in the comment box or Q&A section as you have a thought. But one of the first is bias. AI is only as fair as the data it's trained on. If historical hiring or promotion data carries bias, the system can unintentionally replicate it. And when we're talking about people, that is a very real consideration or friction point for us, is how to consider and how to handle that information. Second is transparency. Many HR leaders tell me they hesitate to take action on the AI insights because they can't explain why the system made a certain recommendation. It's a classic, what we call black box problem. There's something going on behind the scenes. It delivers a recommendation, but we're not really sure why or what led to that recommendation. A third challenge is data fragmentation, and I'm sure many of you can raise your hand with this one, but HR data still sits in silos. It has for a very long time, and it probably will continue to for a very long time. We have our HRIS, we have performance systems, we have different survey platforms, and this limits the accuracy of our analysis and makes integration difficult. And then we have a skill gap. AI is still relatively new. Our HR teams are being asked to interpret analytics without always having the data literacy or change management muscle to do so. And finally, I'll group the last two together. We see the challenge of privacy and the human touch. Employees are rightly cautious about how their data is being used, and HR has to balance automation with empathy. These are all very real challenges. This is our reality check of what we need to consider as we make use of AI solutions. But these challenges aren't reasons for us to step back or to hesitate or to pause. They're signals for us to move forward thoughtfully. The good news is that these challenges are exactly what responsible AI is designed to address. HR stands at the intersection of innovation and responsibility. These challenges aren't just technical, they're ethical, they're cultural within our organizations, and they are organizational. They are widespread. And that's what brings us here together for this conversation in this webinar. The framework I'll share next outlines guiding principles that help to ensure that AI in HR remains fair, transparent, and human-centered, and that the insights we generate truly drive better outcomes for people and for business. What I'm prepared to share with you today is not a tech demo. It's a conversation about responsibility, about risk, and about our opportunity for how we shape how AI becomes a part of our culture within our organizations. At Explorance, we've defined 7 principles of responsible AI, and this is a framework that guides our development and evolution of our AI solutions. Each one of these principles has been considered carefully and is integrated into our design principles. This does not reflect a single act or a single feature, but it's a comprehensive mindset that's woven into every stage of the AI lifecycle. So I want you to think about that for a second. Think about the mindset shift that needs to happen or come along with our consideration of using AI. These 7 principles provide a framework for building AI systems that are transparent, that are fair, that are secure, and maybe equally important, aligned with human values. Today, I'm going to share just a couple of these with you. We'll go through about 4 of them, and I encourage you to, again, submit your questions, submit your comments, reach out to talk with us more, and to learn more about the rest of these principles. And you can see the 7 represented here. The first that we'll start with is number one, and that is fairness and inclusion. Fairness and inclusion is about amplifying every voice in our organization, ensuring that all employees across role, across language and geography are heard equally, that where they sit and what level they sit at has no bearing on how loud their voice comes across. And I'll share with you an example. Here we have a global manufacturer, and this is a multinational company who used our multilingual sentiment analysis to include all voices. Very commonly, we see that the analysis happens in the language of the analyst. In this case, they looked across all comments, not just those fluent in English. Spanish-speaking feedback revealed widespread fatigue and safety concerns among Spanish-speaking plant workers. The outcome, what this enabled HR to do, was to implement workload redesign and improve their inclusion scores amongst this population in their organization. Explorance's solution, Millie, is trained with cultural nuance across a diverse educational and workplace contexts. We really work to avoid internet scale bias that you get from Gen AI tools by using purpose curated and representative data. That is, we use data that is reflective of the workplace domain across multiple languages to train our models. So that they are relevant and delivering relevant recommendations and insights to the context that we are analyzing, in this case, the workplace. We have a team of annotators. They conduct regular bias audits, and they involve our DEI experts in AI development to mitigate such issues. We also offer a multilingual analysis to ensure that all voices are heard in the analysis. All of those comments, all of that data gets pulled into the same system and are analyzed alongside each other, regardless of language. Let's take a look at a second principle, and that is around transparency and interpretability. Trust grows when insights are explainable. Think about any new survey initiative or data capture, data gathering initiative. We always start those with the topic of trust. How can we instill trust? We offer comments around confidentiality, around how the data will be used. But this also comes to bear when we're looking at what are the insights that come out of the analysis that AI delivers for us, and can we explain where they come from? Transparency and interpretability make it clear on how AI connects employee feedback to outcomes. Another example, here we have a hospitality organization. And within this organization, the HR analytics team worked to summarize all of employee sentiment and clearly explained which factors drove engagement scores. So not only did they look at employee comment data, sentiment analysis, they also looked at their engagement scores and compared the two together to see, based on engagement scores, what was the sentiment that went along with that. Through this analysis, managers could see in very plain language what was influencing morale, everything from workload to recognition. Not only did they get a score about varying levels of morale across their teams, but they could see specifically what was driving morale. Did it come from comments related to workload? Did it come from comments specific to recognition? Did it come from comments related to scheduling? And in this case, they were able to see that very clearly. And managers were encouraged and enabled to act with the confidence and with the trust in the data because they had transparency into how they could interpret the why behind the data and the action and the recommendations. With Millie, every insight is traceable to the source comments, and it is presented in a summary that is human readable. It is summarized, and we can see the path from comment to recommendation and insight. Users can see, with confidentiality protected, users can view themes, sentiment, emotion, alerts in the feedback, and understand why the system flagged or recommended something. This is very important to driving trust in the organization. Now let's take a look at accuracy. We know that AI can have a tendency to hallucinate. Maybe we've all experienced that in our own way for a need for fact checking and accuracy. But accuracy and decision integrity. We know that better data leads to better decisions. And data integrity helps to ensure that as HR, we are acting on truth and not noise. We're avoiding those false positives that really work against us, that work to erode trust. Here, let's take a look at a healthcare provider. We've got a hospital network's HR team that ran a parallel comparison of multiple AI-generated insights before actioning them. They didn't just take the AI solution, the first AI solution that was available to them, but the importance of the accuracy and the integrity of the decisions that they were making was of such critical nature that they wanted to ensure that the tool that they used was providing the best guidance and insight toward decisions. They ran the same data set through 3 different AI tools to see what came out of it, which were more accurate, which felt more appropriate, which were led to better decision integrity. HR considered the output for each, for the decisions that reflected both their ethical and their organizational standards. The important thing to note about this process is that it caught a misinterpretation. They were able to find an inaccuracy in their turnover predictions, which helped them to prevent very unfair labeling of departments and leaders as being at risk. Once a department is labeled as at risk for turnover or other issue or risk, we know that that can lead to its own path of perhaps prioritized or urgent actions. And in this case, they found that there was an inaccuracy or misinterpretation there, and they were able to go a different direction. Millie's insights are based on data that has been already human validated. Every signal is reviewed by a team of multiple trained annotators to ensure the accuracy in the tone, the emotion, and the theme that's detected. As I noted, we invested over 8 years of R&D before we launched this solution to ensure that integrity existed at every layer. The last principle I'll talk about today is around privacy and consent. This is probably the number one topic that comes up as we talk about our solution, Millie, with clients, and we talk about responsible AI in the market. Privacy and consent. There are 2 things I want to highlight here. Privacy and consent at the organizational level, and privacy and consent at the individual level. First, I'd like to note that Explorance Millie follows very strict privacy commitments. Customer data is never used for training of our model unless clients explicitly opt in to allowing us to use that data to train our models. We also know that respecting employee privacy builds confidence in them to share their candid feedback. And so we want to ensure that through our solution, employees know that their privacy is protected and that they have the ability to share very candid feedback in a psychologically safe way. And I'll share with you this final example of a financial institution. This is a financial institution that used our AI redaction in their survey comments to remove any identifying details. Think people's names, department names, location names, anything that might be identifiable of the employee. And what the analysis surfaced were some very sensitive themes like discrimination or harassment. Employees in this organization know that their feedback cannot be traced back to them. These issues were addressed, confidentiality was not breached, and what this organization sees now are higher and higher response rates and higher levels of comment data as employees know that that their comments can't be traced back and that they are encouraged to have a more honest dialogue. One last thing I'll state about Millie here with regard to privacy and consent is in the reporting. We do work to protect that confidentiality in reporting, and we include what we call role-based access, where only authorized individuals, think your HR team, can act on sensitive alerts or insights to ensure that those decisions are ethically owned and documented. We take it further to ensure that we're protecting privacy and psychological safety, both of the employee that's providing the comment, as well as the individuals, HR, leadership, managers who are reviewing those comments and the outcome of that analysis. Not all AI is the same, and hopefully that's come through as we've looked at some of these examples and some of the differentiators with Millie. So far, we've looked at what responsible AI should be, but let me make this real for you. I'd like to share a case study, not a product pitch, but a blueprint for how responsible AI was actually applied in the real world. In 2016, we began developing a system designed to understand and analyze open-ended feedback. It's a need, it's been a need since I've been a practitioner in this space for over 20 years. We run a survey, we get reams and reams of employee comment data, and there needed to be a way to analyze that feedback in a fair, transparent, and efficient manner. Since 2016, we've been developing this system, and it's called Millie. But here's the key. We didn't launch it until 6 years later. The reason why? Because we believed that if this system was going to support human decisions about how to teach, how to lead, how to improve the employee experience, it needed to be trustworthy by design. That meant using supervised learning only. We did no internet scraping, no guessing about sentiment analysis and tagging. Every model, our employee sentiment analysis model, was trained on thousands of human annotated insights. Zero customer data was ever used for model training without the explicit opt-in of the organization. We built domain-specific models. We have a model specific for education. We have a model specific for HR, because generative AI is not good enough when quality and consistency is our bar. Every insight the system produces is traceable. We have that transparency. There is no more black box syndrome. The system allows us to see what the original evidence is or the original comment source is for every insight, and with the added layer of being able to redact particular details or names or words that we know might compromise privacy. Human override, access controls, audit logs, giving access to visibility, transparency are all built in from day one. I'm sharing this with you because any AI system you adopt, whether it be Millie or otherwise, from commercial tools to internal models that you build in-house, every AI system should be held to the same level of discipline. This isn't about selling software. It's truly about setting standards in the industry. And this is where Millie lives. This is decisional AI. It goes beyond conversational. It goes beyond informational. It is designed to support decisions with integrity. And if you are influencing what leaders are choosing to do, you cannot afford to get it wrong. That's why responsible AI isn't optional within HR. As I mentioned at the beginning, this conversation is about more than technology. And here are a number of things that you can do to get started if you haven't already. We know that the skill gap is a challenge. Educate your teams. Make sure that people understand that Gen AI tools are not infallible. They're very persuasive, they're very fast, but they're not always right. Insist on transparency and override controls. If AI can't explain itself, if there's no traceability, if you find yourself in this black box, or if it overrides your judgment in HR with what you know to be true or experiences that you've had, that's a red flag. Be that voice for safety, even when it's inconvenient, even when you feel it might slow you down. And last, treat AI like any other critical system. Validate the solution, audit it, monitor it, because at the end of the day, quality isn't just about compliance, it's about protecting people. This is the human aspect of bringing that human touch to technology. If AI is going to be a part of your future, and I bet it will be if it's not already, then as HR leaders, you need to be a part of shaping that future. And what a terrific opportunity we have at this point in time. I'd love for you to meet Millie. It's Explorance's purpose-built ecosystem that allows us to understand employee sentiment with the intentional design of responsible AI. I would be delighted to connect with you. Please do submit your questions. We will follow up with those following the webinar today. If you'd like to learn more and perhaps to see a demo of the tool, I've got my contact information up here, and you can certainly submit that here in the webinar as well. If there's something I shared today that you want to learn more about or that you'd like to discuss, we absolutely encourage the community and discussion around that and look forward to continuing the discussion. Thank you again for joining. Have a great rest of your day.